All right, I think we will get started. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for giving up a little bit of your lunch break to come and join us today. So as I mentioned before, we are recording, so just to be aware of that, but also if I could just ask everybody to stay on mute throughout. We don't have the powers to kind of block your mics, so please do just make sure that you're muted so we don't get any background noise. We're not going to do Q&A at the end of today, but the chat is open. Feel free to chuck messages and questions in there. We will get back to you either during the session or afterwards. And we're happy to take any questions if you want to get in touch after the session as well. All right, so a quick introduction to who's speaking today. So my name is Yasmin. I'm the Senior User Experience Researcher at Connector Talent Technology. I'll be sharing some of the insights from some recent research that we've been doing with candidates and some of the kind of tips and advice from us in the world of talent tech. We're also joined by Emma from Thales, who's a graduate engineer, who's going to be sharing a bit about her experience from the point of view of a graduate. And then we'll be finishing with Sam, who's an emerging talent partner at British Airways, and we'll be talking a bit about how they've kind of leveraged the employer brand at British Airways to build a really kind of active candidate community. All right, so a very quick note on who we are and why we're talking about this. So Connector Talent Technology, we're a software company. We build software for candidates and employees. So we're covering kind of the journey from the interest stage through to kind of supporting candidates through recruitment processes, pre-boarding, and actually internal development and kind of internal mobility within your business. So we're crossing all the way through that life cycle. And if you do want to know a bit more about us, you can find us on LinkedIn, Connector Talent Technology. All the information is there. Okay, so what is the research that we have been doing? So we're very, very lucky at Connector that through our platform and through our customers that use our platform, we have access to kind of tens of thousands of young people, early talent who are going through various stages of their kind of career journey. And through that group of users, we're able to run research like this. So we've just run our annual candidate engagement survey. For this survey, we had 360 responses, and these are all UK-based candidates. And the sort of people that were responding to this survey, they are users of Connector platform, so they are engaging with an employer through Connector. And they're aged sort of from 13 all the way through to 35. We're going to focus on the early talent bracket for this talk today. So apprentices, graduates, school leavers, college students. And that's, again, from that kind of interest stage all the way through to offered candidates and candidates who are waiting to actually start their new job. So what have we learned? So I want to talk a bit about content, but I think just to preface this, really, I think we all know that attitudes from candidates have shifted quite a lot in the last few years. We have this generation of young people who have lost a part of their education and their social experiences due to COVID, who are looking to kind of build or rebuild connections. But not only that, but there's a lot of kind of pressing national and international affairs at the moment, cost of living crisis, climate change, and these kinds of things are at the forefront of the minds of young candidates at the moment. So we wanted to kind of try and understand in this survey what it is that candidates need from potential employers and what's going to make that emotional contract with them, what's going to kind of buy them into the idea of working for your company. So you can't just ask people what they want. It doesn't work, unfortunately, like that. You won't get good results. So what we've actually done is we've asked our users across all of these connectors what kind of questions they were asking brand ambassadors on the Connector platform. And what I mean by brand ambassadors is kind of employees of the company that are representing them and are essentially offering like light touch mentoring, advice and support to interested candidates. So through Connector, this is done through a kind of mentoring function and a chat function. And that's confidential. We don't get to see their conversations, but once a year we do ask them, well, what did you talk about? What did you ask? And so these are the questions that came up the most through to the least. So the top three there, how to make a good application, what opportunities are available, and what are the different routes I can take. So quite practical questions that these young people are asking, but very kind of broad, and that, you know, they're looking for a bit of direction. They haven't latched onto a job at this point. And so the kind of content you're delivering in that early stage has really got to reflect that. So these questions were quite consistent across all the different employers, across different industries. And I think this is actually a really good framework in and of itself for when you're building your candidate experience, to think about, is your content answering these questions? How much depth and detail are you giving? How authentic is it? You know, have you got sort of examples, or, you know, have you really clearly mapped out the journeys that they can take? Because I think we're seeing that more and more employers are offering more routes and more pathways into businesses. We've got apprenticeships, we've got internships, work experiences, different lengths of programs for different people, different groups. And actually, I think we'll start to see young people potentially actually being a little bit overwhelmed by these options and really needing that support early on from the employers to help them choose not just a role that suits them, but the pathway into that role as well. So how can you use this? Well, I think this is really about leveling up what you have already. It might be a case that you just need to switch your tone of voice with kind of static content, or maybe introducing employee generated content, so stories from your colleagues, from your existing early talent employees. You need to really go beyond the logistical questions and make your content feel like it's a discovery, like you're lifting the veil on something that they couldn't have found anywhere else. And this is just one of the many responses that we had, just to give you an idea of the sort of depth and the detail that candidates are looking for. And remember, this is a young person speaking to an employee of a company they're interested in applying for. So this person said, we spoke about the scheme and the details of how they found the balance between the career and having a young family, amongst other specific questions. So you can see just in this one example, they're not just asking about the job itself, they're trying to picture, how's this going to fit into my life? What is my whole life going to look like if I take this route? You know, how can I balance having a family? How can I balance my well-being? And this is where I think getting those kind of genuine perspectives from your employees out into your candidate experience is really valuable. So you've got an idea of the sort of questions that candidates are asking and the sort of information they might be looking for. Well, how do you deliver it to them? So obviously you can create static content, you can put videos up, blogs, that kind of thing. But quite a popular kind of route is having chatbots to answer questions on kind of career sites. So this is a kind of new area for us. We know AI has kind of really come to the forefront recently, and it's rapidly evolving. So we wanted to start to kind of explore this space, particularly within the talent industry. And we asked all of our respondents who had spoken to a brand ambassador if their question could have been, from their perspective, could have been answered by a chatbot. So did they think that the information they were looking for could have been served by something automated? And the vast majority said no, 84%. I don't think that this is going to stay the same. This may change as chatbots develop and evolve and become more human-like, but as it stands currently, the vast majority felt that their questions could not have been answered by chatbot, and we'll dig into the reasons shortly. But before we do that, I wanted to point out on the table on the right here, you can see the kind of responses per age bracket, and it's pretty similar from age 17 through to 24, and then we get to age 25 and the yeses jump quite significantly. And I know this group is not, we wouldn't consider this group early talent, but I really just wanted to highlight that, you know, this is quite an interesting finding, as potentially there's an attitude shift towards slightly older, slightly more experienced talent. And my personal hypothesis here is that perhaps at this age, you have a bit of a clearer idea of your goals, the role that you want, your direction, and maybe you're looking less for that kind of deeper personal support and a little bit more for that logistical, practical information. It could be perhaps that younger generations are just seeking more human connection than we thought. I would love to know your theories on this particular statistic. What do you think this is telling us? So 84% said no. Why not? Well, they want personalization, real, genuine personalization. They want to be able to describe their personal situation and get a response that's tailored to them, you know, their background, their education, their abilities. What can I do with this? What route can I take? A lot of people said they wanted to also hear real experiences from real people. So lots of the questions that the brand ambassadors receive are about their journey. How did you get into your role? And it's that relatability and trying to kind of, again, picture yourself taking that journey and ending up in that company. And that's what really kind of sells that decision into these young people. And some people are seeking opinions, and I think this is really important to remember. Obviously, there's lots of platforms out there like Glassdoor, for example. There is this kind of growing need for transparency and the kind of ratings and reviews, almost testimonials of what it's like to work at your company. So there were a portion of people who they didn't want to speak to a chatbot because they wanted someone to tell them honestly, you know, do you like working here? Which is really interesting and something we're going to have to prepare ourselves for more and more, I think. I also think that when we think of teenagers in particular, when we think of them like not answering the phone, they order their Starbucks on an app in advance so they don't have to talk to the barista. You know, we think of them as maybe a little bit antisocial, and I think actually we forget that a lot of their interactions and their relationships with other people are just happening in a different way that they maybe happened for us. And a lot of the time, those relationships start online, and they're used to curating quite carefully their social networks to have these very personalized feeds, timelines, for you pages. And I think that this is the kind of environment that we're going to have to start building for candidates, where they're going to feel like they've got this space that's completely unique to them, that's giving them the information that they need and the connections that they need in order to kind of build this relationship with you as an employer. And this is where I think leveraging your existing early talent employees to be your ambassadors and to be out there talking to these young people is a really great, relatively low cost way to generate and create this really personalized experience for candidates without potentially spending a lot on a complex chatbot that you're going to have to populate and update regularly. So yeah, I thought this was really, really interesting. And just to kind of wrap this point up, there another quote. So a chatbot would not be able to personalize the response enough for it to feel relatable or achievable. This actually came from somebody who was using the British Airways connector to speak to one of their ambassadors. And I think relatable and achievable, this is a really great mantra to go by when you're crafting your candidate experience. Are you making your roles and opportunities look achievable? Are you showing relatable journeys and experiences? And I think Sam will give you some great examples of actually executing this in the real world later on. So you've got some content and you've got a way of connecting with your candidates. How do you keep them coming back to engage with you? How do you get them to take an action, like applying for an opportunity or submitting some information? This is a new kind of area of exploration for us. We wanted to understand what is the best way to send notifications to young people, and in particular, are there any differences between age brackets? And you can see in the chart at the top, email is still number one, but it is very, very closely followed by text and WhatsApp. And looking at the age breakdown, my takeaway of this is that the slightly younger groups, I think, are leaning ever so slightly more towards text or WhatsApp. I think those two are pretty similar for most. And you can see 25 to 34 is a bit of an increase in email. And I suspect as each kind of new generation comes through, the email number is going to reduce and reduce. So in terms of what I would take away from this, I think it's probably time, if you're not already, to start introducing a secondary channel to support your emails, especially if you're seeing that you're not getting engagement, you're not getting clicks through, your actions aren't being taken. Try introducing another channel, phase it in, and I think in a few years' time we'll start to see emails kind of shrinking away. Whether it's text or WhatsApp remains to be seen. I did pop a top tip on here, which is WhatsApp communities. If you've not used them, they're a really great way to kind of push notifications out to people, but they don't necessarily have to engage back in. So you can really control and moderate, especially when you're dealing with young people. They can be quite a good way of pinging their phone and getting them at the right moment, without kind of opening yourself up to having to deal with lots of discussions and conversations. So something worth thinking about over the next year or so. Okay. Enough of me. I'm going to introduce Emma, who's going to tell us a little bit about her experience as a graduate. So, Emma, thank you very much for coming on and giving us some of your time. If you could just quickly introduce yourself and what it is that you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So hi, I'm Emma. I work for Thales as a graduate engineer on their rotational scheme. So I'm on the third year of the scheme now, where I'm currently working on the hardware team on their digital media and operations. But I've previously done a placement in the sonar studies team in our underwater systems department and as a systems engineer in the avionics department.
Brilliant. And Emma, how did you come to choose Thales as your employer?
So in my final year of uni, I was doing what every graduate does and sort of applying all over the place for lots of different jobs. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, so I think that's how I ended up at Thales on the rotational scheme. I thought it'd be a really great way of trying a few different things before I commit to a career path. My university tutor did also work for Thales, so that's how I knew about them. But I was up to date on quite a lot of the engineering companies that I wanted to work for, knew when their deadlines were, used things like GradCracker, LinkedIn, and just Indeed as well to check job applications and when to sign up.
And you had a bit of a wait time, which is obviously quite typical when you're applying for a grad role between getting your offer and actually starting. What helped keep you motivated and excited during that time?
Yeah, so during that time, Tellers do actually connect us with the Connector platform and give us the opportunity to talk to current graduates and apprentices. And so during that wait time, something that kept me motivated was chatting with some of those and learning about how the role actually works. You have the opportunity to ask whatever you want. So it was really nice to ask people who were in the same position as me a year or two ago. The big questions like what are the placements actually like? What influence do I have in the roles I'm going to end up in and the career path I take, but also the smaller questions. The rotational scheme means you move location. So I wanted to know about the area I was going to live in and where other graduates live and what type of accommodation they stay in. Questions about just office life. Obviously, finishing university, it was the first real 9 to 5 job. So where do I park? What do I wear? Things like that. It was nice to have that regular connection with the company and not feel like I just had my job offer and then was left in the dark for a few months.
And Emma, you actually became a mentor once you were in Thales and you offered this to the next generations of graduates coming through. Did you get similar questions as a mentor? Were there any questions that kind of surprised you?
Yeah, so for the last 2 years on my scheme, I've been a mentor now instead. So that's been really great to offer back to current students and applicants the same that I was offered. So yeah, I get similar questions. I get things about logistics and yeah, the smaller side of things. But I think people tend to ask me more about the actual role, about day-to-day life. Um, we do a volunteering scheme at Tallers, so I get quite a lot of people wanting to hear about that and understand how they can get involved in that as soon as they start. You get people just trying to build their network and understand if they're coming to the same site you're going to be at, they want to make a friend and have a familiar face that they can see as soon as they're on site. So it's good for a whole range of things, and it helps me build my network as well. It's nice to know who's coming in and yeah, make a friend.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma. I think as well, listening to Emma there, what kind of comes to my mind is that the candidate experience doesn't stop after offer. You know, it's so important to keep that regular engagement and keep actually pushing your attraction tactics all the way through until they get into the doors on day one, to kind of, you know, keep people motivated and tackle the risk there of reneges and declines as well. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thanks.
Right, I am going to hand over to Sam.
Thanks, Yasmin. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So obviously I'm Sam at British Airways, and my role within our emerging talent team is to look after our school leaver strategy and outreach as part of our, I guess, apprenticeship attraction. And we do this at British Airways through things like work experience, ambassador programmes, outreach in schools and colleges, as well as having our own connector platform. So at BA, we've definitely seen a massive change in young people since the pandemic, particularly around how they want to engage with us as a brand. And we found that where they've spent so much time online the last 3 years or so, it's more important than ever to kind of use your activity and outreach to create those relatable, achievable moments for young people that Yasmin was talking about. So today I just thought I'd share some of the ways that we've been building, or we think we've been working on building, a really exciting brand that students want to be a part of. So some of the problems we do face at British Airways is a little bit around myth busting around our image. We are a very old airline, we are a heritage airline, so sometimes that can be seen in young people as very traditional, quite conservative, and almost a bit stuffy and boring at times. And so a big part of my role is to try and build up that brand in the student community that they get really, really excited about. So we do this in a few ways, and I'll just touch on some of them here. I guess the first thing would be to use your assets. So obviously we appreciate we have these amazing aircraft in our business, and they're so exciting for our young people to get excited about. We try and get them in front of those aircraft as much as possible, or getting them to, you know, Heathrow Airport, or even just bringing them to the office. It has such a dynamic buzz to it, and it really brings it to life for students who maybe have not travelled or not done much work experience in the last few years. Kind of brings to life our industry. So use your assets, whatever you have, and with that kind of brand everything. So we use our airline's call sign, which is Speedbird, for pretty much everything at British Airways, in all of our outreach and strategy. And we've built up our whole outreach strategy, including all of our programmes, as BA Inspire. So we create hashtags around that, and it makes our activity really recognisable on social media and things like that. We try and create exclusivity wherever possible, as much as possible. So this is about, I guess, again, pertaining to something that Yasmin said, students kind of almost want to feel like they're in a club or they're in the know. So we try and create opportunities that do this as much as possible to kind of build up that excitement and want to be a part of it. We do various programmes that kind of allow the opportunity for that. We monitor trends quite closely. So probably like most people on this call, I spend a lot of time on social media, and kind of the things that I'm drawn to are a day in the life of, or get ready with me for a day at KPMG or whatever it might be. And I find them really interesting. And I know young people do too. So we monitor those types of trends, and we also look at some of the non-employability trends, like you'll see on the screen here that we can play in a second, things that are just doing really, really well on social media. We get our apprentices involved with that and kind of bring it to life. We use imagery and videos, we refresh them, we try and refresh them every year. So if we're building our, I guess, outreach strategy for 14 years old and above, or even younger sometimes, we try and keep that imagery and like the videos refreshed every single year, because we don't want young people seeing the same thing every year. It looks fake, and it looks as though the colleagues aren't actually either in the business or progressing. And finally, I guess, lead by example. Be passionate yourself. I think young people really enjoy hearing about things that you're passionate about, and that kind of excitement rubs off. So if you go on to the next slide, some of the, oh, go on, you can see the TikTok there. You'll have to go onto TikTok to hear the audio, because it's quite sweet. And
Yes, do check it out.
It's not a particular day in the life of, but it's just one of those funny TikTok trends that I'm definitely too old to understand, but young people seem to respond really well to. Cool. So some of the activities that we've trialled to support kind of building up this exciting brand within our community, student community, includes, and I know this isn't probably for everyone, but for us it's the most important is to actually spend time with young people. So I spend so much time with young people at BA, and with our work experience students, our student ambassadors, our apprentices, our graduates. Obviously they're incredibly valuable for the insight that they give, but it also helps us just understand like the language, the kind of things that they want to know, the trends they want to see, and it really, really helps us. So spending time with them really, really works in our favour, because we kind of know what they want, and it just, yeah, kind of builds up that excitement with them. We recognise and reward, I guess, all our colleagues that kind of support this activity that we do. So all of the outreach, all of the programmes, We do a lot of time with, I guess, recognising and rewarding those colleagues. Everybody likes recognition. We do a lot of internal recognition. We hype up our colleagues on like LinkedIn. We also hype up all the students that get involved on LinkedIn. It makes them feel good. And again, it kind of makes them want to be a part of the programme, because who doesn't like that? We use social media quite heavily. So we embed, I guess, all of our activity into social media. So I'll come into our Connector platform in a moment, but that's very heavily embedded in our corporate TikTok accounts, Instagram accounts, as well as like online as much as possible. And of course, we do have a Connector platform. We've branded that as Speedbird Z. So it's a bit of a nod to the call sign, but also Generation C or Z. We have learning content on there, learning tasks that you can see actually in this photo that some of our student ambassadors, although they do look very cheesy there, they've actually designed and working on designing and creating the content for our platform. So we know that it's actual content that young people want to see. We have role models on the platform, very similar to Emma, and we know that young people relate to young people. So absolute no-brainer to have our grads and apprentices feature on as role models. And we also have our opportunities page. So we have things like work experience, applications, all done through our Connector platform. The impact really speaks for itself. We were able to see this year that apprentices who are joining us at British Airways are, well, 6 times more likely to have been offered a job with us if they actually engage with our Connector platform. Similar for grads, 3 times more likely, and it's great for us to be able to track that kind of data of who's joining us versus who's using our platform. And we were able to see that 95% of our BAME apprentice hires had actually also engaged with Speedbird Z. So I guess my overall message is don't be like scared or afraid to try new things. Use your own language, spend time with young people. If I come up with an idea that I think is really cool and then I put it to the young people and they're like, no, that's horrendous, don't do that. At least it's brutal and it's honest, but I know if it will work or if it won't. So don't be afraid to kind of do those things and yeah, be yourself. And the passion and the excitement will follow through. That is it from me.
Thank you so much, Sam. Okay, so that was quite a whistle-stop tour. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. My email is on the screen as well if you want to ask about the data or connect with anybody that's spoken today. So we're going to have a full report that's going to be much more detailed with kind of demographic breakdowns of all of this research. There are a lot of other areas that we've been researching in this particular survey as well. This is due to drop around the end of November. If you want to have a copy of this, just drop us a note in the chat. And actually, if anyone can drop a note in the chat so I know that it works, that would be amazing. We will send it to you by the email you used to register for this event around the end of November. And if you are wanting to stake a claim on the report today, you'll also be entered into a bit of a prize draw we're running. We're going to offer out a free face-to-face workshop with our team. So it'll be 1 hour. We'll come to you and kind of have a look at tackling maybe one of your early talent challenges or review a part of your strategy. And that will just be drawn at random once this call is finished. I think we'll probably give you a few hours if you want to come back to this chat and drop your claim. I can see the messages coming through, so that's working. Fantastic. Yeah. That's everything. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Sam and Emma for speaking. And have a great Friday afternoon, everybody.